Hello, Kim Pryor here, Public Information Director at Rockingham Community College. Welcome to RCC Talk. Today I have with me, as always, my co-host Sally Newman and a fairly new member of our faculty, Tim Johnson. Sally, what do you do at the college?
Thank you, Kim. I'm Sally Newman. I am the Customized Training Director here at RCC.
And how long have you been with us, Sally?
Actually, I celebrated 6 years, November the 1st.
Okay. Well, Tim is new, very new.
Yes.
Tim, you're in your first semester here at the college.
I am.
Tim is the director of the Duke Energy Trails program. We received a very generous grant from Duke Energy back in the fall for $700,000 to start this program that's part of continuing education. Tim comes to us with a lot of experience, and I think we're going to learn a lot today about trails and the program that's going on at the college today. Tim, tell us a little bit. How did you get to RCC? What was your path?
Well, I started out as a park ranger at South Mountain State Park. Did that for several years, and then I stayed within the North Carolina State Parks, and I was a regional trail specialist, which involved working with the state parks and others on trail development and greenway development in the western part of the state. When this position opened up, it just seemed like a good combination of my skills and experience, and I really wanted to try to communicate information about trails to other people, so I thought this would be a good way to do it.
Okay. So you're in your first semester of classes here.
I am.
And I think for the most part your classes have been full. You've been very busy.
Yes, we've had two of our longer classes, our 4-day classes. Well, we've had one of those, and we had 18 in that with a limit of 20, and we've got that same class scheduled in December, and it's full as of today.
Okay.
Yes.
So tell me about the classes that you're teaching.
So all the classes that we offer at this point are pretty trail specific and deal with design and layout, construction, maintenance, and management of natural surface trails. So the 4-day class that we offered in October that we're offering again in December is basically a beginner level class for anybody that has an interest in trails and maybe has no experience at all.
And so someone who's interested in trails might be interested in constructing them, maintaining them. We are hearing a lot about outdoor recreation. Help me connect trails to outdoor recreation. So
trails and greenways are really popular right now because they're relatively cheap to construct, to provide areas for folks to walk. And anytime that you see a Parks and Recreation survey, walking is usually the primary use that people are interested in. So it might be a natural surface trail in a national forest, or it could be a natural surface trail in a city park. They're both constructed the same way, maintained and managed the same way, and so that's sort of the reason we're focusing on that here.
Okay.
So my question is, backing up just a tiny bit, Tim, tell us, how did you get involved in this field?
I was really interested in being outside. My father was a biology teacher.
Okay.
And so growing up, I fished and hiked and all that kind of stuff. And so this was sort of a way to be able to do something I enjoyed with being outside, and that's sort of how I tripped into it more or less.
So, and you have been in this field for 20 years. So what exactly did you do as a park ranger?
So as a park ranger at South Mountain State Park, park rangers generally are jacks of all trades. So we did a lot of education and interpretation, which would be programs that we would offer for school groups and the public dealing with different natural resource issues or tree ID or stuff like that. So that was one aspect of it. The other aspect was law enforcement. So we were all sworn law enforcement officers and had to enforce laws within the state park and the rules and regulations. Along with that went emergency medical services and search and rescue and that kind of stuff. So I did that as well. And then one of the third aspects of it is natural resource management. So natural resource management is doing things like prescribed fire and flora and fauna inventorying and identifying. And so that was, something I did there as well.
Wow.
There's a lot to be said about that field that I think probably the
There is.
average consumer is
Do
just
not
not
know.
aware of.
No.
So,
Right.
you hear of trail building and you think, okay, let's take a mattock down on the farm and just cut a trail, but there's so much more to
Yeah.
it than that. Can you tell us what makes the difference? I know when I was with your class one day, you were actually working on our trail system here, and I really didn't hear the instruction you were giving. I was really there just to photograph. So tell us a little bit about how you get started with a class and once you're
Okay.
on the trail or in the woods.
Right. So generally you start, if you're starting from scratch with a vacant piece of land, you start with a map. And the map, will point out various control points or points that you want the trail to go or points you want the trail to stay away from. And so the challenge is being able to connect those control points in a way that's sustainable. And so our classes start with maps, and we look at the maps and we lay out trails on the maps. Once you do that and you have an idea of where you think the trail is going to go, you can go out in the field and use a tool called the clinometer to actually lay the trail out in the field. So that's the next step, is to go out in the field and you tie flagging or colored plastic flagging in the trees that marks where the trail is. And once you do that, that's when you take the mattock, or what we call Pulaski or fire rakes, and start actually digging the trail tread, which is what you saw when we were out there. And the important thing is that you've got to make sure a trail is designed correctly and constructed correctly so that it doesn't impact the natural resources. So we want to impact the natural resources as little as possible, and we can do that through design and construction of the trail.
Well, tell me a little bit. You mentioned sustainable. So tell me what that means is in trail.
Right.
System.
Yeah, sustainable is sort of a buzzword now, and you hear it used, for a number of different things. And when you think of trails and sustainability, a sustainable trail is light on the land. It doesn't impact the resource a whole lot, and the maintenance that's required is minimized. So a lot of trails that were built 20 or 30 years ago or longer require a lot of maintenance, just because they're not designed correctly. So in order to make something more sustainable, you've got to design it correctly, and again, that way it requires less maintenance and it impacts the land a lot less.
You're probably meeting students from all over this county and the surrounding area. I'm sure that can you tell us a little bit about your students that are currently enrolled, where they're from, and what their interests are, if they've had other careers?
Right. We've had, a wide variety of students. In the October class, we had some younger students who were, fresh out of college with a 4-year degree and were working and beginning jobs in the field, that were coming just hoping to get more skills. We had several retired folks who do trail work as a hobby, and so they were coming to kind of learn the skills as well. I had an individual in our class this weekend who had worked in one field for the last 15 years and has decided he wants to switch fields. So he attended the class this weekend just to get an idea of if it was something he was interested in. As far as area, we have had folks from the local area come to the classes. We've had some folks from Virginia. The class in December, I know we've got a gentleman traveling from Tennessee who works for the U.S. Forest Service. We've pulled several students from Western North Carolina and the Asheville area, as well as the Triangle area, so Raleigh and Durham.
Okay.
So yeah, we're getting a good variety of folks from all over North Carolina, as well as a couple of neighboring states, of different backgrounds and different ages.
Well, what would you say to the career person who's maybe had a different career for 15 years, or even the young person who just maybe as a young person like you just enjoyed the outdoors and envisions a career? Just example for the one that you have or the things you have done. What would you suggest to them?
I think it's important to get as much different experience as you can. So, if you want to work in the outdoor field, don't just limit yourself to trail construction, but look at the other the other aspects like the natural resource management that I mentioned and some of that stuff. And different land management agencies have different philosophies. So the U.S. Forest Service might have a much different philosophy than, say, the National Park Service. And I think it's important to try to get a little bit of experience with each one of those, because when you work for agencies that have different philosophies about the outdoors, you can, it makes you more knowledgeable to sort of form your own philosophy about it, I guess. And a lot of people, when they think about trails, they think more about those federal land management agencies like the National Park Service or the U.S. Forest Service, or the state agencies like the North Carolina Forest Service or the North Carolina State Parks. But there are a variety of different agencies out there that need trail professionals. A lot of the local parks and rec departments now are building trails, mountain bike trails or hiking trails within city parks and more urban parks. So they're looking for folks with those skills. A lot of the land protection agencies, like conservancies, their major goal is to protect land, to keep it from development, but they're starting to understand that people that are donating money to protect this land want to see it. And so in order to access the land, they need to build trails, and since they're charged with protecting the land, they want to build them correctly and in a sustainable way. So there's a bunch of different agencies and opportunities as far as that goes for folks that are interested in trail building or natural resource management or outdoor related jobs.
Well, that makes more sense to me now.
Yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense. My question is how there's a lot of careers in this area in trails. So how would a person just call you to ask some questions, some basic questions, how they would get started, and to see if they are actually interested in this career? What would one of those classes be if they call you?
So they call me and they could take a class or two just to get an idea if they were interested or not. We're offering our classes. We have a certain training sequence that we have, and and you could take every class in the sequence if you wanted to, and it would prepare you real well for trails. But we offer multi-day classes, and so those are classes folks can come in and spend 3 or 4 days and get a whole bunch of skills at one time. But we also offer those same classes in individual days for folks that can't do multi-day classes.
Right. Okay.
So it might be you could take 3 different classes over weekends, and you would get the same information that they would get in a multi-day class.
Okay.
We're just trying to be really flexible in how we offer them. And in the past with our multi-day classes, a lot of those people are folks that are already employed by land management agencies, and they're just trying to increase their skill set.
So how is the word getting out, Tim? Is it word of mouth? Is it social media? Is it both? So how did this person in Tennessee know about to come here to Rockingham County?
Right. I think it's a little bit of both. I've got a really big contact list just from my experience in the field. Okay. And so I do send out kind of a mass email advertising the classes. And of course, then that probably gets forwarded to folks too. So I think that's how a lot of the word's getting out.
Wow.
A lot of my contact list is in the western part of the state, though. So the folks coming from the western part of the state, they're probably getting the information that way. The folks coming from the eastern part of the state, I guess they're looking at the website or somehow getting the information.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we just sent the continuing education spring schedule out. I think every household in the county has received it, and there's a big section in the front of it on trails and the program, along with the other things that we're offering. So hopefully we're reaching out to some local folks too.
Right.
I noticed you are a graduate of community college, Haywood Community College, and so it's interesting that now you're back in the same setting teaching.
Yay.
Tell us how you feel about the community college setting from a teaching perspective and interaction with your students and that type of thing.
It's when I went to community college, the thing that appealed to me was that you got those hands-on skills, as well as the lecture part of it. And I think that the neatest thing about working in a community college setting is the variety of your students. So you do have students that might be, might have just graduated high school, that have no idea what they want to do, that are just sort of exploring different fields. But then you have those folks, like the fellow I mentioned earlier, who may have been in a career for 15 or 20 years and has decided they want to do something different. So the variety of students is really neat, and along with the variety from an age standpoint as well as experience standpoint, is they just bring a bunch of different experiences to it. And so one of the neat things about the classes that we offer is that we try to take advantage of the different experience levels in the class and have people offer their own advice and that kind of thing, and use that to our advantage to teach others possibilities in the field.
Well, I mean, that's sort of the nature of the community college, right, Sally?
Yeah.
We're here to take you from wherever you are to wherever you want to go.
I agree. Of course, I went to community college as well, so I believe it's very vital to the community still. It's that bridge between high school, going into a career, or going into a career and going to a university. It's a really nice fit. Coming to the community college, and you, as Tim says, you get that hands-on as well as lecture, and you get to meet a great diversity of people as well. Get great instructors who have experience in what they're teaching, so you just cannot beat that community college feel.
Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about women's roles in your area. Sally and I are always interested in what a girl can do. So, tell us a little bit about, in your experiences, perhaps women that you know who are in this field, advice you would give a woman looking to get into the field.
I think the field's open to all. As a park ranger at South Mountain State Park, I had two other fellow park rangers that were women. And the expectation was that they would do the same thing that anybody else would do as far as law enforcement and natural resource management and interpretation education. And they did, and were very effective at it. And so I think it's important, in settings like that for kids to see that and understand that it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, that opportunity is open to you. And there's nothing, with trails and working in the outdoors, there's nothing really there that I would consider real limiting as far as that goes. So there's a role that anybody can play if they have the skills to do it.
Okay. Now you've got a speaker series going on right now. In fact, one coming up tomorrow night.
Right.
And then the final one is next Tuesday. Tell us a little bit about the speakers you've had. And you're at the Madison Med-Inn Library?
At the former Med-Inn Library.
The former Med-Inn Library.
Yes, so the sort of the goal of that speaker series was to try to get some speakers to come in and talk about aspects of park and recreation planning that the public might not be aware of. It's free, so anybody can come. And the first session we had at the beginning of November was a couple of ladies who have been working on river access areas up here in Rockingham County. So they came in and talked about it from the planning perspective as well as actually putting it on the ground. The second week that we did it last week, we had park superintendents from Mayo River and Haw River State Parks, and they came and talked about planning from a state park perspective. So Mayo River and Haw River State Parks they're very different as far as the resources they're protecting and the way they're run. But as far as planning and long-term planning for those parks, it's very similar because they're both state parks. So they came in and they just talked about planning in general in state parks and then how it was specific to their park. Tomorrow night we actually have some local folks in western Rockingham County, that farm, and they're going to come talk about agroforestry and some of the new sort of ways that people farm now. So actually farming under the tree canopy. And taking advantage of that from the standpoint of tourism and doing ecotourism. So having people on their property, learning about agricultural practice in that setting, and they're going to come tomorrow night and talk about that. And then the last one that we have, which is the last week in November, that Tuesday, we've got Michael Brandt, who's the town manager for Mayodan, as well as the mayor of Mayodan. And they, over the last 4 or 5 years, they've developed a mountain bike trail system at Ferris Memorial Park.
Okay.
And so they're going to come in and kind of talk about how that progressed from beginning to end, from the planning all the way to putting it on the ground. And the mayor's hopefully going to talk about a little bit about the political implications and why he supported it and why the other folks on the town council supported it. So the lecture series is something that we're going to try to do 3 times a year. We hope to do it at a different location in the spring, maybe in Eden, and have a different set of speakers. And then we'll also try to do it in the summer and hopefully maybe here in Wentworth in the summer. So that's sort of our plan as of right now.
Well, I think that one good thing for our viewers to know is that if you're not able to make the lecture tomorrow night or next Tuesday night, they are going to be recorded by our staff, and they'll be available through our college website and through our Educational Access Channel 2 that will be available. So what's happening after the holidays, like in January, February, March, April with trails? What types of courses and plans do you have?
So we've got a pretty full schedule for the spring, offering all the trail classes I've talked about. We have the basic classes that are the design and layout, construction and maintenance. We have some more intermediate classes like trail assessment that we're offering. So we've got those planned. We're sort of branching out as well, and we've got some agriculture classes being offered in the spring, and those will be 16-week classes. We have a canoe and kayak class that we've offered twice so far and have good success. So folks that are interested in learning more about canoeing and kayaking, can take that class. And then I think we also have a landscape equipment class that we're offering, which will also be a 16-week class. So we've got a couple of longer classes in there, as well as the shorter trail classes. And in the spring, once things start greening up again, we have a foraging class where folks will go out in the woods with their instructors and look at the various plants and mushrooms and that kind of stuff that they could actually forage and eat. So that's kind of exciting. That'll be offered, 6 or 7 sessions of that will be offered in the spring.
So will the classes like that be on this campus, or would they be in other locations? Or
most of them will be on this campus. Now the 2 agriculture classes will be at the former Mayodan Library.
okay.
And then we also have a couple trail classes that are offered there. So it's sort of just depends on what we're trying to do and where the sites are to go visit, and for some of those classes, Mayodan just works better than Wentworth.
Okay. Well, Sally, jump in here.
Well, I'm just listening because I'm learning as well. But I did have a question. Now, some of your students, are they in the class just for personal enrichment, or are the majority of the students that are seeking enhancement on knowledge enhancement and looking for a job in this field?
I would say probably 80% are there for extra skills for their current job, or for a job they're looking to get. The ones that aren't, the other 20% generally are retired folks that volunteer on trails, and they're just trying to get more information so that they know they're doing it correctly.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting.
Well, as an instructor, what do you hope most your students will gain from being in your class?
I think I want them to have a love for the subject matter. The other thing that's really important to me is that I teach it in such a way that they feel like they can teach it to others. Because that makes my job easier. If I can sort of educate and create teachers and educators, and they can go out and do the same thing, then the information that I'm offering, will be more widespread, and it definitely needs to be.
Well, Tim, I sure appreciate you being here today. And
Thank you.
Sally, thank you as always for sharing the responsibility of co-host with me.
My pleasure.
Lots of things going on in
yes.
college, even though we're getting ready for a break for Thanksgiving and a holiday winter break. We are registering right now for spring and summer classes. So if you are a visiting college student and going to be home for the summer, and would like to take some classes, now's the time to prepare for that. If you are currently enrolled, you need to register now to get ready for spring. And of course, if you're not enrolled, come out and see us in the admissions office. We can help you with the application process and get you signed up for the things that will help you improve your life. Sally, what's going on in your area as we wind down for the new year?
Well, we definitely are winding down. I think a few of my colleagues still have some classes going on that probably will be ending in December, and of course the continuing education classes will be starting in January when we come back to campus. You can look for classes to start January, February, and probably March as well, I believe. So we try to work with the community schedule as we schedule these classes. So we have a lot going on as well, as far as hoping people will remain open to learning and choose RCC as the place where they get their education.
Well, and in continuing education, there's so many things, from emergency medical, improving your office skills, office administration, medical office. We have some new programs, psychiatric technician, pharmacy technician is still a fairly new program.
Yes.
So if you're just looking to improve yourself with a hobby, or you're looking for a career change, continuing education is a really great place to start.
Very much so.
Here. And thank you for joining us today
Thank
for
you.
RCC Talk.
Yes.
And remember, at RCC, you start local and go far.
Go far.